I'm recording to the. I mean, you can record too. You want me to enable recording?
No, no, no.
I can
You're
share it with you. I started recording to the server, and then I realized I want to record to myself. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been last couple of days. I've been relentlessly looking at how I feel when I look at myself, because I love myself. I actually think I'm awesome, and I'm like, this is great. Like, I love you, Jan. You're doing a great job. I love you. You're awesome. And but then I would watch some of my videos, and I compared them to this other guy, and not from the sense of let me compare myself to him, because we're two completely different energies. And so but more so in the way that I felt when I listened to his heart and how it was being expressed through his words versus how my heart was being expressed through my words. And I'm like, this guy is getting the stuff out in his heart with less of a filter than what I have on. And so whatever I had on in these previous videos, whatever I'm holding in, I need to rip off. It needs to go this weekend. It needs to go now. And so I shot a few videos last night with our new, like, literally within the last day, we refined our marketing campaign. I shot videos last night on that. I refined the message to JFH. I shot videos on that. And I'm just like, up until 12:30 a.m. this morning, I was, going through this recalibration. And that's when I was like, let me message Anna. I saw the thing on Twitter, and I was like, let me message Anna, because I can't ask myself these questions. I could, it would be, I could do it actually, but it would be, it just felt right to message you. So thank you for being so responsive.
cool. Endearment driven, endearment principles turning into an infinite flame, um, and how to endear your audiences. That's beautiful, Jen. Um, I want to ask you a question because I want to make sure this is as clear and as clarified. Is this, you mentioned how this is similar to our interviews and how there's a beat sheet. And during the time at Venture Out, it's been an incredible opportunity to refine that a bit more, to help people really reveal their, I guess, their inner, what makes them endearing to others. Um, and maybe I can try that with you, where I can ask you a series of questions as if you were being interviewed and I'm interviewing you. Is that clear? Is there anything I'm missing?
So I'd say that the beat sheet that you and I would produce, that we would prepare, like when we did for Shazia, if you remember, when we sat down, like that preliminary call led to the questions that you asked on the interview,
Right.
on the actual shoot. So it's the preliminary stage that I'm actually the most interested in right now, rather than
All right.
the quote unquote interview on camera. So I'm kind of looking at this as an off camera interview, and saying,
Okay.
and really looking for you to um, ask me a suite of questions that you feel would draw something out along the lines of of a hero's journey narrative from your perspective, of how to turn that person into that heroic character. Perhaps the language I just chose was not something that you and I were talking about previously. I um, because I saw you kind of go, "Hmm?" However we did it previously, because I know my thinking has shifted and yours has shifted and evolved, simultaneously. So I'm interested in how you would do it, and whatever comes from there, I'll be grateful for.
Of course. Um, well, I guess I think in any interview or any beat sheet, I think it's very, very important beforehand to just understand what is your, as simple as it is, what is your role in what company. That has to be super clear,
Mm.
even basic. Um, and Would you mind saying that, or would you?
I would please treat me as if I am a client that you're interviewing, and you're going to put together an amazing video for them that shares their story. And so if you could do whatever the development session that you currently do to get to that super dope, final product that you are, master at, um, please, you know,
Sure. All right. Well, Jen, I am so honored and I love you so much.
I
And I'm
love,
so excited.
thank
I
you so much.
love asking you questions. And I'm excited because I think Zoom is absolutely beautiful. I think it's an incredible space to have discussions, share questions with. And I personally am super excited. It's like I have you instantly. It's better than FaceTime. It's incredible. Um,
Just so you
so
know, I set up the easel for Jet. Autumn got him an easel for Christmas. I just set it up about 2 hours ago. So your easel in the
I
background is no fun.
have my easel here as well. So let's get the basic. I'm going to ask you a few important questions first, um, and then I'll ask you a little bit about your background, and then I will ask you a few fun questions after that. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Awesome. All right. Um, may you please state, and as you know, as you're very familiar with, may you please state your name and your role in what company? And whenever I ask a question, please remember to actually state your answer, state the question in your answer, as
Okay.
I know you're super aware. So, what is your name and what is your role in what company?
Sure. My name is Jan Lucanis, and I am the founder and CEO of Real World.
And what can you give me about two sentences of what is the problem real world is trying to solve?
The problem that Real World is trying to solve, or is solving, I'll speak more toward the goal. The problem the Real World is solving is bridging fans and brands, and more specifically through story, using story as the bridge. And the playing field has been leveled for fan creators and the brand that create content. And oftentimes you'll see user generated content being viewed far more than a brand created content. Um, so Real World is very much creating an ecosystem where brands and fans can collaborate on shared story universes to build out narratives together, and fans connecting with other fans too, of course.
So, how would you rephrase that in terms of it being a problem statement?
Hmm.
If
Uh,
they were the problem, as in perhaps the bridges,
sure,
what is not being bridged together?
sure,
Why is that so important?
sure. I'd say the problem with media over the last, I don't know, nearly 100 years has been the fact that there are large companies that have access to production and distribution resources that impose a narrative on people that don't have access to production and distribution resources. However, the narrative has shifted because now we all have access to production and distribution resources. So the one thing that people really need right now is guidance, not on what to say, but say, how to articulate their story. So, Real World is focused on cinematic storytelling to help people tell their stories that much better and more clearly. And by doing that, we create a system that allows brands that have traditionally had all this power and now trying to figure out what to do in a world where people have these tools that can do what the brand is doing. Now we're empowering brands and saying, well, hold on, you guys can actually help guide the story for your company by reaching out to and collaborating with all these other people that are walking around that don't have necessarily the historical infrastructure that you do. So you can use for a brand, you can use your historical infrastructure. And I'm utilizing terms right now that I haven't used before for Real World: historical infrastructure. But what that means is that if you have a franchise, like for the movie business, if you have a franchise intellectual property like Harry Potter or Star Wars or Marvel, that has 80 years fandom associated with it. Well, you can leverage that IP by opening up. Real world is opening up essentially the gates of storytelling, of cinema, to allow people to come in and to participate in these story worlds because they can, and why not? And it's time for people to actually have a creative voice, because historically, even before these companies existed, um, the primal state of storytelling, the primal foundation of storytelling was always communal. It never was one person telling the village a story. It was someone starting a story around the fire, and the story being passed around the fire. So what we're doing with Real World is very much getting back to the roots of communal storytelling, rather than imposition.
Amazing. Now I want you to go back a little bit, and I want to take a bite out of what you just said, and I need you to take that into one sentence. I need one sentence out of you, and that's when you stated that people do not know how to tell your story. So I need you to phrase that, please, as a problem statement. I love that. So perhaps around people do not know how to tell their story, or people have a story and yet do not know. They have all these tools and they do not know how.
I have it for you. I
Okay.
just said it yesterday, but I'll bring it, but I'll channel it to today, which is that storytelling has been left behind. Technology has advanced, but storytelling has actually deteriorated, and that's absolutely truthful. And you know this because you watch movies, and movies have become templatized. So in other words, every movie you see is actually based off of and especially in America, is based off of a 1990s screenwriting concept, that was made popular by, I believe, a guy named Sid Field. And so the tenets of screenwriting these days are actually based on other screenplays rather than cinema, which was based on real life and articulating real life artistically. So people know these patterns, they're bored by these patterns, but they don't necessarily know how to. Everyone can read the language of cinema, but doesn't know how to don't know necessarily how to write it. So people would social media leaves behind stories, but they call them stories. Like, you share something for 15 seconds, but it's not really a story. Well, Real World is essentially guiding you to actually tell a story based on templates, based on you being able to fill in the blanks for, this is what happened, this is where I'm going, this is why, and being able to edit that kind of stuff together automatically, and then being able to frame it within a larger story, whether it's yours or yours with another friend or yours with the world's biggest brand.
And can you attempt the same again with, and that was lovely, I love that. May you also say it again with communal, and shorten it, concise
Sure.
it,
Yep.
simplify. There is no, and just a sound bite, I need a snack. I need a tiny little, it's a huge snack philosophically and with depth. However, to condense it is important. So, along the lines of communal storytelling has been left behind.
I appreciate that.
No individual was meant to tell their story to a tribe in order for that tribe to grow spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, and as a humanity.
Wow, that was a great pitch. Whatever that. I want to be a part of that.
No man was meant to tell their own story in their own silo. Humanity has never grown by that. Humanity was never, ever progressed like that.
I appreciate that. I like the concept of essentially framing it as communal storytelling. Communal storytelling has been left behind, and we're all meant to tell our stories together within the larger narrative. And the fact is that it's hard for us to even tell our own stories because we don't have the cinematic guidance to actually use these phones properly. Because anytime you see an iPhone ad and they're telling you can make movies, but you can't make movies because you don't know how to do it. And so we're going to guide you through the steps of making your own movie about yourself and about your story and how that ties to everyone else's.
And stop there. And I want you to say there are currently no steps to teach you how to tell your own story, how to tell your own movie.
I like that. There are currently no steps on how to tell your own story. Well, I'll say this. I'll say this. I'll say this because now I think about um, what you sent me like that day when you freaked out and sent me Adobe Spark. You're like, Jan, look, they're sending story templates out, and the fact is that they're just Adobe Spark and a slew of other companies are doing very basic storytelling templates, and these storytelling templates are not truly direction. So what real world actually is, it's like, where it's the ecosystem is like a studio in your pocket, but our core process is the role of a director and being able to have, like a director makes a movie great. Actors, so like an actor can be great in a movie, but the actual movie itself is because you have a great director with great actors with great story, and oftentimes um, that gets overlooked. So what real world is a director in your pocket to help guide you to tell a better story, and that's that's our core, our launch product.
And why is that so important?
Why is direction important?
Why is a good director and a good story important?
Well, if you want people to understand, you have to share, you have to articulate yourself. If you I'll answer in the form of a question. A director is important because a director guides the progression of your story per shot, and the director will help let you know what happens in each shot, and that ties together from the last shot to the next one. And so, without direction, you're just pressing record on your camera and you're running around, and that's what we have on social media today is we have people pressing record and running around, and that's not cinematic storytelling. Cinematic storytelling is tying each shot together and what happens within it leading to the next.
Beautiful. Wow. Is there another way you think that we can share what real world is solving in terms of a problem in one sentence?
Is there another way we can share what real world is solving as a problem in one sentence? um, Well, you know what? Let me just answer this as yeah, because like there's part of what's happening that right now for me is that like you're asking me this question. It's great that you're drilling down on it because I like having to think about it from multiple directions. But I also think about our website, where which
Right.
kind of like organizes the information pretty specifically. So part of me is trying to cheat and answer that rather than answer from that rather than answer from my heart. And and what I really am looking to get out of this weekend from myself is like I said,
Yeah. All right.
really taking off whatever layers on here so I can, you know,
Well, let's start there.
uh,
Oh my God. It is. Give me 1 second. I have to add a heater in my room because I am so. Oh my God. It's so hot in here. Literally, I'm above the garage of my house, and because I love having light, natural light in my room. So I have.
dry or wainscot.
This is right. This is my bedroom. This is the bedroom I grew up in. And I have this one wall over here. It's facing the street, and I have this window over here that also faces the outdoors. And so I need a little heater, and it's very warm now.
That's
So
your
I have to
question.
go back. What?
Is this the bedroom where you had the concussion?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Good question. This is the room I had the concussion in for a month. And then this is the desk that I sat down in to start writing again after a month, and it was very, very difficult. And then I went upstairs to the room that's right up there. So that the small little bedroom where, but I did look at the tree outside here and meditated on it for about, that's so amazing. Oh my God, I can't believe I remember that. This was the place where I would look outside the tree every single day and make shapes and memories and stories from that tree.
No,
So,
it's fun.
well, let's start with you then. Let's start with you. Um, Jen, remind me, not like I already know this, but where did you grow up?
Grew up in in New York, around between Chinatown, Brooklyn Heights, and parts of Manhattan, a little bit on Long Island. So Long Island.
And how did you, I guess, before your startup, how did you very quickly get to real world, or get to the point where you decided it was important enough to make this company?
I grew up with my dad is a comic book writer and critic, and both my parents are gamers and martial artists. So pretty much everything in my life, all of those aspects are actually power what I do with real world now, and all that has led to real world. So the comic books and gaming led to me attempting to code games and making films when I was in high school, and I went to NYU for film and started my production company from there, while working for a music video director, and just learning as much as I could, and immediately having a vision for more than just a filmmaking company, but for a company that was it spanned entertainment. So we started doing music, we started doing comic books, and started working with some game companies as well. Um, but the focus was always uh, film was how I discovered myself in high school. So when I went to the New York Film Academy in high school, so that blew my mind, because for the first time I felt like I was actually being myself, and I wasn't dealing with whatever pains, some depression, etc., that I was dealing with from feeling like I didn't have the creative outlet that I felt like I needed. And so I had this really dark, flat perspective of my life at that period, until I started doing filmmaking. And so everything started connecting to back into filmmaking. So I was like, comic books are great, because even though I grew up with comics, I saw them differently, because I'm like, these are storyboards for movies. And gaming was like, gaming in general, the references, um, uh, cinematic storytelling. Oftentimes, when you have like the AAA games, the AAA budget games, they're essentially trying to make you feel like the movies that those game designers saw, that inspired the world, and so they're cinematically trying to convey their narrative to you. Um, versus using gaming, because some people do use gaming as its own art form rather than as a referential to film. But a lot of these AAA titles are referencing film, so I'm like, this is like a movie, but it's not a movie. So, but I love the idea of being able to play within a movie world, and I also love the idea. I love the experience of being on set, and just all that I would learn on set person, and all the fun stories that weren't captured on film while you're making something. So that experience, both the experience in front of the camera and behind the camera, kept on informing everything that I was doing, whether it was music, comics, or gaming, and or animation. And real world is just the culmination of me working with every industry, and recognizing that each industry has the same exact problem. What the real problem is they have audience members, they have fans, they have customers that they want them to do something. And like, how do you get people to do something? How do you get them to take action? And so if everyone's dealing with that challenge of figuring out how to get someone to take action, I've always been able to get people to take action by saying, hey, do you want to make a movie with me? Like, always. So from my first time touching a film camera, I literally had SNL cast members and just hobbyist martial artists and just people that just never been in film before. I had professionals and amateurs working together just because I asked. So um, that's the foundation of my experience in filmmaking is people coming together from both the top tier of creativity and people who have never done it before and being on an equal playing field. So I learned other things and other ways to do things, but none of them have ever compared to the first experience I had. And so real world to me is me sharing that first experience over and over again of essentially saying, hey, we can all make movies together. It doesn't matter if you're a major studio or if you're a fan. Here's the bridge for all of us to collaborate. And I've been figuring out how to take myself as a bridge and turn it into technology so that I don't need to be there to actually encourage the collaboration. And that's what we are accomplishing with Justice for Hire and what we'll.
Let's go back a bit. Let's go back. Let's go back to the moment right before you went and did Real World, about the time that you had depression that was dark, that you've now overcome, of course. And that fellow.
Of course I am.
Nice. That fellow is wonderful. What are his fears?
What are whose fears?
So your past self. So looking at yourself when you were right before you accessed filmmaking, and right before you realized you could say, oh my God, hey, make a movie with me. What are his fears?
Oh man, this is a great question. Thank you so much. This is we did an acting workshop today and I had to write a monologue, and I had to dive deep into that self to write that monologue. So you asking this question is helping me from another angle.
Another question, maybe, what is he lacking?
So so the first question is, what is he afraid of?
What are his fears? Not what is he afraid of, but what are his fears?
So I'll speak. Let me know if you want me to speak from third person, but speaking from first person, a very formative event for me was defending a friend in the park when I was about 10 years old, and him essentially getting beat up by a family of the kids that I was defending him from, and him running away and getting beat up by this family while adults were watching and not doing anything. As a matter of fact, one adult tried to come over, the kids pushed him away, and then he just got scared and went away too. So I'm getting beat up, watching all these adults not know what to do, and and watching my friend abandon me. So I very much realized that that coupled with my parents splitting up at the around the time, starting to have real marital challenges, was putting me in a position where I didn't trust relationships. I didn't trust adults to be able to solve problems that were as simple as kids, having an altercation. So I didn't see adults being able to protect me. And yeah, I didn't see people like as I said, friendship. A guy who I was considering like my closest friend abandoning me, my parents having their challenges, and then of course splitting up. So I definitely gained a lot of weight and became like a depressed, overweight kid who got made fun of and bullied. And I'd say that everything before that, up from 0 to 7 years old, was like brilliant and wonderful and amazing life. So I got the taste of having this amazing, awesome life, and then having things shift very, very quickly within a 2-year span, from like 2.5-year span, from like 7 to like 9.5, 10 years old. And and so that person that I became, um, I didn't have a zest for life. I just kind of felt like, I remember like nearly committing suicide once, and like coming to my senses that this is probably not the right thing to do. but just really being in a place where I felt like, um, I felt alone. I felt like I used to escape into Star Trek: The Next Generation. And when I discovered Star Trek: The Next Generation, I saw a world where, people had gotten over, a lot of nonsense that separates human beings, and were unified and uh, exploring outside of themselves because they had worked on what needed to be worked on here. Um, what the Star Trek I just described is not the Star Trek today. The spirit from which that Star Trek was created was a very particular place, that is no longer, being channeled by the current writers of Star Trek. So that's a separate thing. But as a kid, feeling scared and feeling like I can't walk around the streets without being, I can't walk around anywhere. I can't go to school without being bullied, and I can't, trust any adult on the street to help me. And my home life is rocky. That all kind of added up to, until, like I said, to a bunch of loneliness and desire. And to a certain extent, I was identifying those feelings as the feelings for the connecting to our conversation earlier, that the JFH community is feeling. And so I was like, oh wow, like these kids that are going through what I went through, and that's why I can speak to them. um, and and they've always come to me. Those kids have always come to me. Like once I, like literally the second I graduated NYU, they started like coming to me, like when I was like 22 years old. Um, and I didn't know why. And then I realized, like recently, like within the like last day, I was like, oh my God, those are the kids that came to my first public screening. Oh, I gotta speak to them and help me, you know?
It seems, when you saw adults, um, not know what to do, and then you saw parents not know what to do, and it seems from that, just because the adults saw bad doesn't mean they'll do the good to fix it.
Yeah.
So just because that family and that adult saw you being bullied, they didn't seem to do what they're supposed to do. And just because you have a child doesn't mean you saw this, that parents will be the parents that they're supposed to be to raise a child. And you were put in a position of wanting to tell them what to do for the sake of your own development, that you had to do by yourself, and that you felt alone, and you had to escape to Star Trek, where where you saw a world where people were getting over nonsense and were unified, and they explored things outside of themselves because what was already inside was already aligned. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just had to write down what you said, that just because people see bad doesn't mean they're going to do the good to fix it. And I thought that's a really powerful line. So I had to write that down under the monologue because I had to consider that.
I
I
wrote
couldn't
I
not.
wrote I wrote a bit here, and so now you're seeing these children, and it's like you see yourself in them, essentially. And you see, essentially, the question I is my favorite question to ask to someone is like, if you could see that self being bullied, If you could see, actually no, if you could see your 10-year-old self, yourself as 9 or 10 years old, um, and you can see him imagine he's right in front of you, and he's looking at you. He's like, "Hi, Jen. Oh my God, hi. I love you. Oh my God, you're so cool." And if you could give him, if you could give him one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
I used to talk to my older self, and what my older self would say um, is that, hey, just keep going because it's all going to turn out amazing. And um, like, just like, look at me, this is you. And so that would inspire me when I was a kid. And this is, I'm getting, I'm feeling something right now from saying this, because what I just described is a one-way street. And I want to turn it into a two-way street,
Mm.
because or it's a loop that goes in one direction, but I want it to come back because um, I want to hear what that kid has to say, because I remember what he had to say, but like how he felt. But I want to hear it from the more expansive and empathetic position that I'm in now than I being here. That I didn't have that when I was a kid, and I didn't, maybe I didn't have that last week. So
Well, if you can hear him now, then what is he saying?
he's saying how scared he is. That it, to a certain extent, this stuff is terrifying. You know, um, it's really tough. It's really tough to feel so. It's tough to feel so alone and so hurt, and that you're not doing, you're not necessarily making the best of it, and that can be, part of the cycle of depression, is knowing that you're not making the best of it and doing it anyway. And that to me is really interesting, um, because, like, tearing up a little bit. um, it's I was talking to Jet 2 days ago about potentially joining, like, like the like one of the top acting schools in the country, a conservatory, like, came out to him, like, offered him a position to come in, and he doesn't have to do it, and he's not going to do it. He likes acting, but he doesn't want to go through their system to do it, nor does he have to, like, because their system is an antiquated system that's falling apart. But I want him to know that when my parents offered me opportunities, I didn't fully grasp the opportunities because they weren't presented to me with the type of articulation that I feel like a child deserves. Like, kids aren't kids. Like kids are souls, contained within younger bodies that actually have, like, a capacity to understand some very dynamic things. And so if I would have understood and had a little bit more clarity and from my parents of, like, hey, you should be do you want to learn Chinese right now? Like, no, it's okay. I'm just gonna stay home playing video games and like continuing to eat myself into sadness. Like, okay, well, that's fine. You know, like the opportunities, you know, even fencing. Like I was taken to a fencing school and I didn't accept going into fencing school because I was scared about being overweight in that white suit and being made fun of, you know, and not recognizing that this was an actual opportunity for me to not only change my body but to refine my character and like what the strength, all this other stuff, all these great things that make you a superhero, literally. You know, if a kid likes superheroes, they're gonna be like, hey, if you want to be strong like that, well, these are the things that you can do to do so, and it's right in front of you. And so that those types of comparisons weren't made for me. The lines weren't drawn for me, which is part of the reason that I think I'm so adamant with drawing lines for people, not so that they stay within them, but so that they just have the option to recognize that they're there. Because there are opportunities, there are pathways to a higher form of existence, and um, without taking without someone actually just letting you know that, hey, it's right there, you know, and this is what it is, and plainly explaining it to you, um, you may miss that. And I think that I made decisions as a kid from that depressed, sad place without having uh, the adult in my life, or you know, clearly articulate certain moments like that for me. So, you know, kind of circling back to your question of like, or that two-way street concept that I was talking about. um you know, that the only thing I can say to, I don't know why I say it like that, I can say, because that's me talking to that little kid. But what I hear from that kid is the terror and the pain, and um like an absolute disdain for school and having to get up the next day and go to school because it was just such a horrible, consistently horrible experience.
Right.
So, and the only
Can
way
I
I
can I cut you off?
sure, I'll just finish it by saying the only way I can justify that is by me recognizing that all of that led to this, and
Mm.
and these understandings of draw the lines, like make it simple for people to understand, and let them know that they don't have to do it anyway. Yeah, like here's the opportunity, here's the path. You don't have to choose it, but just so you know.
So I want to say thank you. I want to say a huge thank you. And actually, if I were in your shoes, I would actually tell yourself to close your eyes and imagine that teenage self who's alone and so hurt giving you a hug right now, who is so alone and so hurt, and you knowing that he's not necessarily making the best of it. And when you're done, open your eyes. Whenever you feel ready.
You know, it's so fun that you say that, because when I was that age, 10, 11, 12, 13, I would hug like that, the air, hugging myself now. So hugging myself between the ages of 26 and now, like I would see myself, like I still talk to my 40 something year old self, um, to get some advice. And I've of course been talking to like the bearded muscle champ. So, but what were you saying?
That I think you have now targeted the exact audience, because what you don't realize is that you've actually articulated how every single person feels in the world right now, in the United States. Alone. And this is I really think you've got it. I honestly think I should pop a bottle of champagne. Because it's so, what you said, I think is so
Drink it on your end like a heathen.
well, because I love what you said. It's so impactful, and it goes into removing that filter between you and your audiences. How do your audiences feel right now? With every single day that we're with social technology, we're alone. you're so hurt. And the thing is, like, we all know, or those people, like, you know, you're not necessarily making the best of it, it being your
Wow.
whole life. We all know subconsciously that we're not making the best of it. And like you said, that can be the cycle of depression. Doing it anyway.
Wow. Seeing bad and not doing the good to change it. That's a profound perspective you just shared, which I want to feel so free. And part of that freedom that when I watched myself compared to that other guy, and I felt that whatever they're like, whatever this is, I was like, man, like what he's doing is that for him, but what is that for me? And by talking about this with you, and feeling by you drawing those lines for me just now, I feel like there's there is still some like, clarifying on how to channel that feeling and um, to create that bridge of empathy between myself and a wider audience, while simultaneously saying like, hey, look, like, I've been there. This is what I felt at this particular time. And the reason that Real World is built, the reason that Justice for Hire is built, is based on coming out of that. Like coming out of that, that's what I always wanted. And now culture and technology have allowed me to build it. But now everybody else is there where I was. And like, and not to say that's not me saying I'm better than anybody. That's me saying that, like, I was in a position that this time I'm seeing other people in a position now that I was in when I was a kid. And this time for me has actually been only accelerated like growth, because I knew what to do going into it from so many different perspectives. Like, oh, this is about to happen in culture. Now I'm going to do this. And so, because this is what I need to do and I've always wanted to do, and this is what people need. So my want and the need have come together. And so I think and that to me is what actually makes magic, because what we're doing is actually magic. It is actually the future. It's undeniable. It's so undeniable. Now we have a stacked list of like, top minds on our advisory board, because no one can deny it. No one can say no at this point. So, and I think conveying that energy of the need, the personal need, the personal want, and the societal need smashing together, and and just sharing that, because I think to a certain extent there's like the branded, hey, we're going to talk to this segment of fandom, this segment of fandom, this segment of fandom. That's strategic and that's like focused, and I like that. But there's a part of me that just wants to share like this, and um
And I think those causes will come up by themselves, right? I think those causes, I mean, I think it's why I love how Auden brings up the Black Lives Movement, like people to see that there's bad being done, and that, yeah,
you bring the black.
Auden in the video, she her statements of like X amount of police, or like X amount of people having
Oh,
the police, blah blah blah. Her focus and attention on that is in my mind wonderful, because it draws attention to
that wasn't associated
adults
with the Black Lives.
not knowing what to do. What?
That wasn't associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. That was just an actual police. The police statistics over the
There
years.
wouldn't be those statistics if police weren't shooting down Black people at a crazy rate.
Yeah, but that's normal though. I mean, it's a horrible norm, but that's actually part
People
of what.
didn't start paying attention to those numbers until we had cell phone cameras to actually
Exactly.
could actually see that's happening.
Exactly.
So it is inherently tied to the movement. It's not like, it wasn't like Black Lives Matter campaign reminded me that this is a thing, but like,
Yeah, it's a thing that the Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter campaign underlined as like, hey, this is actually happening, like, for decades. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to it.
And like I guess what I'm trying to say, and I agree with Autumn. I think it's really about like because how do I say this? I'm going to try to articulate this, won't be the best. Um, in terms of your target markets, like going into fandom, I think, and I'm just going to speak here and I'm going to see what comes out of my mind out of just observing what you said. Um, one of the things that you said is that you felt alone, and so you essentially escape into Star Trek. And in a way, it's as the real world is that universe that you're building where people are getting over nonsense and they're unified and exploring outside of themselves, which is when it's already inlined inside. And now going into comic fandoms and going into those audiences, it's like they're replicating characters who are already inside unified and clear and like they know themselves. Um,
Are you
but I
talking
think
are you talking about like cosplay community kind of experience?
yes. Like they're already conveying characters in which like
Yeah, they're
their inner
channeling,
alignment seems like
what
very,
they,
very clear.
yeah.
Um, I guess and I'm reminded of this because I also, the alter ego effect, the power of secret identities to transform your life. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, the connection to, for example, giving pizza out to homeless people that I saw in your video, and like how do I say this? How, I don't know, like, are they, God, this is where I begin to lose articulation, right? And I don't know what is the right answer. I don't know where you will find the other communities that are finding or seeing bad and then they're not doing anything about it. And then someone
Mm.
there then tries to speak up. I think that's a really common pattern. And in Comic Con, it's like they see stories where people in those stories may see something that's bad and then they do something about it. Or Batman or Marvel, those Batman, again, I'm not a part of, I don't know too much about it, but I know the as much as I can. And it's, Batman sees something bad and he solves it. He sees something bad and instead of doing nothing like all the adults are doing, he's actually stepping in to do it.
This is really interesting to me. What you just brought up something by saying that something to mind, because like our conversation is leading to so many breakthroughs, and I don't expect us to figure out how to save the world on here, but I do.
Yeah, this is why we got on a phone. No, I'm kidding. Of course not. Please. We're not trying to save the world on a phone call. Jeez, Jen. Jeez, Jen. Might as well not be having this. No, I'm kidding.
No, well, what I mean by this is because like one of the things that I feel like, and you brought this to mind because you're saying these things that are making me think about our acting workshop earlier today, where I said something that I couldn't expect anyone on there to be able to respond to, um, which is, how do we change the pattern of our storytelling, which is, because it's part of my job at this point to be analyzing the patterns of long, short form and long form pattern recognition from Tai Chi, etc., and applying that to industry, and applying that to cinema, and applying that to storytelling, script writing, etc., and saying, hey, if Autumn and I want to watch a movie, the majority of things I see on our Netflix feed that are being fed to us have a pattern I can draw on paper. I could draw right now, and the hero story arc starts here, the status quo. They have the inciting incident, which takes them on this journey that drops them down. First, they actually go up a little bit, or they're going somewhere. They could be going up, they could be going down, but essentially they're going to a place that doesn't take them far away into inspiration. It doesn't take them to massive heights. But the heights that they might be experiencing, because of the nature of duality, rather than adding a component, let's say God, to the equation, because when you add that third opponent, the spirituality creates the sweetness. So most of these films and stories lacking the spirituality are essentially just taking us round and round these materialistic concepts that lead to pain and suffering. And by going to this pain and suffering, we're drilling ourselves down to this um, to the into act two, where you have this plot point number two comes up, and you're like, well, hold on, I can still win. At plot point two, we start going back up, and we hit to the crescendo, the climax of the story. And after the climax, we settle back down into our into the epilogue. And now we're here at a slightly different place, and definitely have learned something from where we started, but we're not much higher than when we started. In most of the films I see on that feed, that's the feeling that I personally get, that I'm not coming out of the film feeling inspired, because everything I just said, all the narrative, all the writing, all the stuff that goes into it, puts, at the end of the day, is still just conveying a feeling. And that's part of the reason that I feel like social media is so powerful, because you're watching short things and getting a feeling, rather than having to watch a very long thing to only still get a feeling. So if all I'm getting is a feeling and then a bunch of subconscious signals that are leading me to believe that this feeling is the norm that I should be experiencing, and these subconscious instructions are informing my daily activity, etc., then what we have is, in my opinion, a disease. Like, we have film and television that does not actually take us to new heights. We have something that is subconsciously programming us to have the world that we have, which isn't that awesome. Like 50% of the people on Earth right now are below the poverty line. Are have significant problems with having access to food, etc. So it's like, when I getting back to the inspiration that you gave me on here, as a reminder of channeling that energy of, because what the part of me I really want to show is the part of me that's so aware that that attention is divine, and that connection, the second that someone gives you a connection to a piece of content, that they've opened themselves up to in the most intimate of ways, more intimate than a conversation with your friend. Like, if you're on your phone, you're in a more intimate situation than you are with a person here to here, oftentimes, because what you're receiving from your content is actually informing how you interact with people. So if we change the way we design our content, and we change the way we tell our stories, if we help people to tell their stories from a place of wisdom, and what that means is that I'm personally looking into, and what Real World is doing, is looking at all of these patterns and where they drill us down and take us down, and then looking at and saying, okay, where are the places in culture, from the world's culture, which oftentimes leads you to look to the east, which oftentimes leads you to look, you go into Japan, you go into China, but then you probably are going to end up in India. And so, looking at all these ancient stories and how they actually energize us and give us very specific guidance of the things to do as a spiritual being having a human experience, and then say, how do we integrate that into how we tell our stories? So, like, that to me is so powerful and important. And I feel like there's a part of me that is scared to share that, only because I oftentimes feel like I have to throttle that information for people that just aren't ready to hear it. Because what I just said, to a certain extent, from a business standpoint,
you
is
don't have to feel so alone.
that. Thank you for saying that.
You don't have to feel so alone. Right.
Yes, I appreciate that.
The way you communicate, the world around you, you don't have to feel so alone. You really don't. And so many of us are more like you than you might imagine.
Well, I'm happy that came out from listening to you just now, because I think I think that I've definitely been afraid to express myself like that publicly, and I think that there's no better time than right now to start doing that.
Remove that layer.
Yeah.
For the past 2-3 years, it has not served you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for
At the
noticing.
beginning, maybe if you said like a few times, like, "Oh, I think the world's not ready to hear me." 3 years later, you don't have to feel so alone. So, attention is divine. And energizing the world. I love what you said. Energizing the world to new to a new storytelling height. Ancient storytelling was used to, like in that communal way, and with the technology resources available, to unite the community and to energize it.
Wow. You just took all that and you just said it perfectly. Hold on, let's write that down.
It's being recorded
Oh, it's
at
true.
111104. You can just write down 11. That was on 1101. You can write down that. It was on 1101
1101
of this audio recording.
on a
And you said it. I just rephrased it, Jim.
yeah, but that was really well said. Like that was so simply put. It was utilized to story was utilized to bring the community together and to energize it.
Yeah.
Like bring them together, uplift them. Now let's go and do better things than we did yesterday.
Exactly. It's like society needs a new CPU card. It needs, or whatever it's called. It needs a new graphics card. It needs a new software. Humanity needs a new software. And guess what? You'll see it when you're sitting on that chair of a podium and you see everyone around you. I think you'll feel very fulfilled when you begin to realize that, like, so many of us around us with our phones, when we go through Instagram, we have these discussions every single day. Just yesterday, I had a discussion with my two best friends from high school, and one of them says, like, and I keep hearing these conversations from 10 years ago. Every time I go on social media, I feel really bad because, I compare myself to others, and it's just people running around with phones, filming whatever it's around them, or just reconstructing their identity. And so you'll be so surprised or feel really like so fulfilled when you say, like, it's like every only my mom feels this way, but like being alone or hurt, or you don't know necessarily what to do with the technology that you do, and then you see Facebook saying, like, oh, well, we'll try. Facebook's essentially trying to do what you're doing, what real world is doing, by saying, like, oh, let's be super charitable, let's have more pages. And you've probably noticed in the past few years, it's so easy for people on Facebook to fundraise, because Facebook is essentially following your own route. You figured out Facebook before Facebook figured out its own self, and its I guess attempt to survive. So because Facebook too is trying to save itself by allowing it to be a platform that energizes and uplifts communities. And from a discussion I had recently from a chief creative officer, chief creative lead, someone like that at Facebook, he says, I spend most of my money, taking the money from Facebook. This is only information between the two of us. I take most of that money from that and I distribute it to communities, because, like, that is the good that Facebook should be doing. And that is essentially what will help bring people getting more and more onto this platform. Why do you think that is? It's the only way it can survive. It's the only way technology can survive, because at some point technology will hit a breaking point in humanity and people will need real world. So anyway, I hope that resonated. It resonates with me. I don't think it'll come to a breaking point. I don't think humanity will start to go off a cliff and then need real world. I think it'll come much before that. Prevent it, upgrade it, uplift it, energize. So
I'm so grateful for you taking this time. I want to be mindful of your time because I know it's 11:47 there.
Oh no, it's 10:47. It's 10:47. I'm good. I'm gonna read my journal. I'm going to paint, talk to my sister.
What are you painting? Can I see that?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, it would be great to get both you and Jet painting together.
So this will tell you a little bit about myself.
Hold on, is that a globe on a lake? That's crazy. That's amazing.
So this is my consciousness as a child. And as a child, I saw reality, a beautiful, wonderful place. And yet I found places of it, which is what the dark represents, scary. And really, like I couldn't bring myself to explore the world around me. And I chose not to. And so in order to escape from that place, I created this little globe for myself. And so here there would be a little child, and she would try to hide and escape. And what I'm trying to say in this painting is that the world isn't all that scary. With or without these black blotches underneath it, there's still going to be this beautiful world. That's there. That's at least what I'm trying to say.
So I have to say that is a best-selling graphic novel like cover. Like, I'm serious. Like that is.
Seriously?
No, I mean, like, I'm not even kidding. Like, Autumn just handed me some hot honey on some cheese. Thank you so much.
Wait, Autumn, do you like hot honey on goat cheese? That's like my favorite thing in the whole world.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Goat cheese and me, I swear to God.
You're painting. It's amazing.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Thank you. It's not done yet. It's not done. It's not done. This is going to be a little bit more fleshed out.
Wow.
It's amazing.
This is me as a child.
That is awesome.
So,
I
anyway.
mean, like, it's significantly like. I don't know how you would scan that.
That's like a whole concept.
Yeah, that is.
More than just
Yeah,
well,
like,
I had to kind of, you know, when something's inside of you and you have to get it out. So I was like, first it was just nice, and I was like, no, like this represents my reality and how I saw it, and it's like, yeah, it's my philosophy. So anyway,
so I'm going to ask this question just because, but I'm like, the question is actually just covering up what I'm about to say. So, like, what I really want to say, which is that if you ever decide to give that painting to anybody, give it to me, please. It's so good. It's actually amazing. Like, I mean, if you're going to keep it for yourself, but if you're going to give it to anybody, like that is a huge deal, because it is definitely the cover for a franchise. That's Hollywood Jan speaking, but that's exactly what that is. That's 100% like,
wow.
yeah, in a
What
heartbeat.
would the title be?
I don't know, but it is
Honest
a
dream.
new type of storytelling that we are engineering, and that's what that painting is. So please keep it for yourself, and make sure that we're constantly referencing whatever story is going to come out of that, because that's a huge deal. Man,
Yeah, it's my story.
it's a huge deal, because you'll have many stories to tell, but that one, whatever that one is a huge deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's called IP. Okay. That's fresh IP.
Favorite quote from Jen tonight. If you decide to give it away, I'm so here to take it off your hands in case you were planning on burning it out, you know. I can never imagine you saying that.
Well, the only reason is like the point of giving it to me is that I will remember to consistently poke you about that property, because that to me is a
I
massive.
love drawing, so I could try to make a graphic. Actually, no, I'm not a great drawer.
You should probably figure out how to scan that in.
Oh, I can scan it on my phone. That's no problem.
No, I'm talking about like a professional, like comic artist would, and like, if you ever want to do that, and if we ever need to do that for that property, I'll just, yeah, it's a property now. It's already happened. What I'll do is I'll message like a Marvel or DC cover artist that I've worked with in the past, and just have them give you direction on how to translate that into the proper format. That's yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah.
Child exploration turned into IP. I love it. This is great.
Yep.
This is just what I need. Also, I want to thank you, because honestly, I was I feel so nice that I got to see you and that I got to see the whole team. It made me feel so fulfilled and happy. And to see Autumn, oh my God! Now I'm going to plan tomorrow having cheese and honey because that is just such. No, wait a second. I had that. Did I have that today? No, I had that yesterday.
Cheese and
Chickpea pasta. Oh my God! I think it was like goat cheese and honey. It was so good. It was like sweet pasta. It was amazing.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Sweet pasta with goat cheese and honey.
it was chickpea pasta.
Chickpea pasta, goat cheese, and honey to make a sweet pasta.
Honestly, it was not that bad.
That sounds delightful. Maybe some spinach.
Ooh, I would not have added vegetables to a sweet pasta, but now I may have changed my mind.
Just a little spinach.
But seriously, you made my night. I feel so happy that I got to talk to you.
I'm so grateful too. And yeah, this is
You made my night.
yeah, this is and ditto. This is like a big it's a big shift weekend for me, and to be able to sync with you is always so meaningful. So like
Yeah. And Jen, if you need to call me at any point and be like, hey Anna, I just have some thoughts. Can you just give me a space to share them with? Oh, wait, don't ever feel like you can't reach out to me and just call me. Tomorrow at like 1 p.m. for an hour and 8 p.m. my time for an hour, I'm doing, or I have calls that are for like an hour. But if at any point outside of like 1 p.m. or 8 p.m. you're like, yo, Anna, even if you just want to send me an audio message and be like, I just need someone to listen to me.
no.
And I don't know how to express, because getting that layer off is so important. My other suggestion for you, in case you are curious about this, is to write for 15 minutes without stopping your stream of consciousness. And I do this every morning. It's called my morning pages.
Nice.
Heard it. But I would recommend it to you because to me, in my own layer healing, it's been really helpful for me. So maybe it'll be helpful for you too.
Well, I'll say this. Thank you. I do have two questions for you, and one I'd like to keep the recording going for, and the other one I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
So the one that keep the recording going for is, you're encouraging me to just share, and to share from this space because, and don't choose the martyrdom route of feeling so alone. I'm holding this thing so alone. Like actually choose the route of expansion and say, if I feel it, people are ready for it, I'm going to share it. Where would you recommend I share these feelings? For Jan, for real world, for Jan and real world, what communities in general, and maybe it's just filmmaking, but I think filmmaking is too broad, and that's that to me is not really the community I'm actually seeking to affect. I'm talking about everyday people to a certain extent, and everyday people is the easiest way to group them from my perspective is into fandom. But I'm interested in from your perspective, because if you're having, I think there are people that would essentially invest in us that would be, because we're raising $1 million from the crowd, so like we need to connect to the crowd. The Black Sands CEO knows that his demographic is a very specific. He's like, hey, you know what? We're like Hollywood doesn't want the African American narrative. And he villainizes Hollywood. It says there is no Disney, there is no Netflix, there's only us. We're building our own studio. And he's going off on that. People are funding him like crazy, and it's amazing. I love to see how this guy's like identified and made himself a hero in the journey to creating this amazing platform. And so I'm like, that's great. That's not what we do. That's not what I do. Like what I'm talking about is something that is actually and not to say that our vision is better than his, but what I'm getting at is that it is inherently broader by us saying that storytelling as a whole, the way we consume it through giving our divine attention to things like this, is actually massively inherently flawed, because it is affecting all of us, and we need to change. We need to come together, bring the community together to actually lift us up, rather than coming together so that we can all get depressed at the same time. Like so much of social does, like so much of messaging does. So who are those people? What are those groups that you feel, from your perspective, are resonant and ready for what we're doing?
College students who have just graduated.
Hmm?
College students who have just graduated.
College?
Just graduated. We have a year off before they can actually, they're actually being promoted by society to not actually do anything for an entire year or two. Yes, they're in student loans. Not many of them are. But many of them are hungry to actually change the world, and they don't have classes to bring them down. My first guess was could be high school students. Um, High school students as well as college students. And a brief vision that came to my head was actually, um, oh God, was it USC that started using Tinder? Yes. And like 200 kids on a bus were like not forced, but asked to use it in a very similar way to have them be your audience, whether that be, and this is where I don't know. I want to clarify this answer more over time, if it is like for the next day or two, to clear my thoughts. But it really seems like there is this untapped potential currently in society of people who want to change, who want to change the world, who are seeing things happen and they want to change it. And tapping people's, and like who are the people who are the most ripe for that, with all the variables that are happening in their lives. um, I would really say the people who have been during COVID mindlessly scrolling on Instagram, mindlessly scrolling through TikTok, perhaps just making TikToks because they just want to create some kind of story for themselves. And the people who have demonstrated that, for example, that they have this fight in them for change, and whether that change was the Black Lives Matters movement, that's a great indicator that they're ready. And I'm reminded of a friend of mine who, again, she's taking a year off right after college to just volunteer for a farm and to just do. She likes to promote stories off of the farm that she's going in on the Dodo, which is a production company on Spaceway. But like, they have time
Did you say it's a production company on space? In space?
on non-space. It's a production. The Dodo is like a viral video
Oh yeah.
on Facebook that you probably heard of.
Yeah.
And it could be like an endearing story could come from there, you know? So
You mean for the little animals, right? The dodo?
yeah.
Yeah, I follow. Of course, I follow the dodo.
So she did one recently on like a little horse that was like lost or something, and it got on her farm and she promoted it. But it's like it's those people who have this both fire and really it's a passion of theirs. Maybe they want to go to, she wants to go to criminal justice, um but you know,
She
they
works
want
for the
their,
dodo. You're saying
excuse me.
she works for the dodo.
No, she brought the story to Dodo.
She bought this. Oh, she brought.
She brought the story of the animal to Dodo. Yes. So I would target people who have a lot of time, have demonstrated that fire in them to change society, and have also been scrolling mindlessly, who probably want to apply right before they want to apply to, I guess, criminal justice school, for example. Um, I'm thinking of I think there's a huge opportunity, in my opinion, of you going back to NYU and when everything opens back up again. Like when, for example, I'm thinking of you in Skirball and like looking at the crowd and saying like, I will give this app for free to the first like 10 or 20 students who run off and make incredible stories with it. And
I got to reach out to Brock Johnson again. He's on vacation.
yeah, and
Brock.
to do that and to do something similar to what USC did with Tinder, like make everyone use it right before they went to a bus,
Oh,
do something similar there, because those
I don't
students,
know about this USC virtual bus thing that you're.
so I'm referring to when Tinder just launched. And
Oh,
when Tinder just launched at USC by a few students, they were all just going to a frat party, and they were going inside a bus where, in order to get to this party, in order to get onto the bus, they had to sign up through this app called Tinder.
oh, hold on. So Tinder
Yeah.
was started by frat boys and on a bus?
Yeah.
USC.
USC. Yeah. There's
What?
students at USC. I think it's Tinder or another USC origin story. USC alumni and Tinder co-founders meet with students, blah blah blah. It was a USC exclusive dating app.
It does make sense.
Yeah, it was on a bus, and it's because like,
Unlike the classy people at Bumble.
oh my goodness, oh my god. I think my sister, who's in the bathroom, just laughed and she heard. She was like, she just heard, unlike the people at Bumble who are not classy.
I mean, Bumble. Bumble was way more premium than Tinder for like when it first came out.
Right. I've never used
They,
any
they,
of these
they want to
apps,
feel
but,
more.
like,
It felt more refined than the heathens
Yeah.
on Tinder.
So in the beginning, 90% of Tinder's users were between the ages of 18 and 24. After 17 months of growth, Tinder's college-age users are at just over 50%, and other demographics have expanded. So anyway, yeah, that's how Tinder got started, and so that's how I'm kind of looking at real world for you, targeting college students, because you don't realize um, how these kids, like, they have the time, like they'll go to protests, and like
Well,
they are people who are willing to tell their own stories on social media. I think that's where.
yeah, what you're really. I'll say this just to kind of so that you have a full so I can fully articulate where we're at with real world versus where we're at with justice for hire. So
Okay.
like real world is right now crowdfunding campaign, hyper focused equity crowdfunding. So therefore, to a certain extent, our first push has to be to people that have disposable income. And the
Yeah.
family communities are people that have disposable income versus like the like high school kids and college kids, which oftentimes may not have a lot of disposable income by comparison. However, that being said, there is a thought leadership opportunity in terms of endearing this endearment engine that I was asking you to kind of use to pull out this information out of me. I think it's actually really smart for us to share the message of what real world is to these groups to say, hey, look, get behind this message and look what and then kind of forward them to say, look what we're already doing with justice for hire. Because justice for hire actually is our core demographic with JFH is 13 to 17. That's not because we're targeting them. That's because that's who's showing up. Kids are showing up. And these kids, like they may not necessarily have a lot of cash, but they have a lot of time and a lot of energy. And so I do differentiate between those two. But I do also, I think that thought leadership, positioning and thought leadership is super important. And I want to make sure that those kids, are looking at me and us the way that, I would look at, or we would look at, like Elon Musk, et cetera. I'd be like, yeah, man, like, yes. Bulletproof car, that's cool. And space
Until
flamethrowers.
until you put a bullet in it and then
So,
it doesn't work.
I'm going to stop. Unless
what-
there's another
you know
question
what?
you have for me, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay. I was also gonna say that the guy that you really hate on social media?
Oh, hold on. Let me stop the recording before I answer this.
Okay.
Right? I should stop it?
No, don't stop it. Just let me
Okay.
just say one more thing. That guy that you really hate? Nas Daily. Remember him?
Who?
Nas Daily, Nasdaily. Do you remember him?
No,
He
I don't.
really
First
hated-
of all, I don't really hate people.
No, you didn't hate him, but you hated the videos that he puts on Facebook.
The videos that not.
I remember you sending one and you were like, this was so annoying. You were like, sorry, you didn't hate it. You were just so annoyed. And I was like, I was so amused.
Yes,
It's like-
you told. Was this when Facebook Watch just launched, and you were like, "Hey, look at this."
I think so, yeah.
And it was a guy, and it was a lot of colors, and
He was like, do you know
yes,
that here
yeah,
in Israel, there
Yeah.
are people who are good? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Please stop.
So I'm gonna break something to you, which I think there's actually, and I know his videos are super annoying. I know that. I understand. I get it, Jen. And what he's doing is, of course, very different from what you're doing, but I want to draw a similarity here. I think both of you
Draw the lines. I think anything that I dislike, I have to look at very clearly, very specifically, because I'm actually finding a lot of stuff that's super valuable in the things that I dislike.
Okay, because what he's doing, I think, is actually what you're doing.
Probably.
Which is you are trying to create, I suppose in some ways, a template for storytelling that energizes and uplifts humanity and creates communities. To be honest, I see that same thing in what he's doing, except he's trying to empower also just simply creators. So I think if he even did a story on you and seeing like, look at this person trying to make new storytelling, blah, blah, blah. I think that would actually, I think that might draw a very interesting audience to you and people who will, I don't know, come to real world. So.
Well, I mean, first of all, do you know him personally? Can you make an intro?
I wish. I don't. That's why I'm like, man, universe, manifest.
Okay. Please, can you send me a video where you feel like this template is
all of his videos are literally like the same, so I'll just send you any one of them.
Oh, no, just one though. No, please.
I'll send you a whole library for you to watch.
Not a playlist, just a single one that you think is resonant.
Yeah, but he's now built an academy for creators to make content the way that he does, that both energizes and uplifts humanity. So he took his template and is now teaching it to other creators.
Oh, actually, that's super interesting. Can you send a link to that too, please? Because if he's templatized,
NAS Academy. Oh yeah, that's why I saw him and I was like, why do I keep thinking of Jan?
Yeah. Anybody who's templatizing anything is super important. Like Andra just jumped out of a plane for like Christmas. She did skydiving, and like
I saw.
And the fact that she could do that they have a system in place where they know exactly what to shoot, how they're going to shoot it, and how they're going to edit it and deliver it within one day. That's a template. Real world should be within a couple hours. So like real world should be automating that. Like that's really, from a content creation standpoint, that's what we should be doing. Where we're at is more so in the ecosystem standpoint of like saying, hey, look, we're wrapping processes around a story, but as we grow, and part of what we're raising cash for is to build the automated processes. So yeah, but okay, so I'm going to press stop now on this.